The Magnetic Law of Love. Tesla discovered the secret of real attraction. New York, 1895. The laboratory was on fire. Nikola Tesla watched out the window as everything he had built over the past 10 years disappeared in the orange flames that consumed South Fifth Avenue. Your inventions, your projects, his notes on electricity, magnetism, the very invisible structure of the universe, everything turning to ashes. But he didn't cry. As firefighters tried to control the fire, Tesla remained motionless, his eyes fixed on the flames, not with sadness, but with a strange serenity, because in that moment of total destruction, he finally understood something that would forever change the way he saw the world. Love was not what they thought. It wasn't luck. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't destiny. It was pure physics. 3 days before the fire, Tesla had made a discovery that deeply disturbed him. He was testing resonance coils when he noticed something impossible. 2 distant coils, without any wire connecting them, began to vibrate in perfect synchronization, as if they were calling each other, as if one recognized the other's frequency and responded, crossing the void. He wrote in his notebook with shaking hands, "When 2 fields vibrate at the same frequency, attraction is not choice. It is magnetic inevitability." That night, alone in his apartment, Tesla had a devastating insight. He remembered Catherine, the only woman who had ever made him feel anything other than the cold electricity of his machines. She was married, inaccessible, distant, but whenever they were in the same environment, something inexplicable happened. He felt it, she felt it, like 2 coils resonating. But Tesla never acted, never spoke, because he thought love was something that should be controlled, repressed, denied. Now, watching his laboratory burn, he realized the fundamental mistake he had made, not just with Catherine, but with existence itself. He had spent his entire life studying magnetic fields, alternating currents, invisible waves that connected the universe. He knew that everything in the cosmos operated by resonance, atoms vibrating, particles dancing, planets orbiting at precise frequencies, and yet, when it came to love, he believed in control, in logic, in suppression. What a cruel irony. Tesla closed his eyes and, for the first time in decades, allowed himself to feel. Don't think, feel. And there, in the smoke and heat, he formulated a theory that he would never publish, never reveal, but that he would keep as his deepest secret. Love is not an emotion. It is a magnetic field, and when you try to control that field, you are not protecting your heart, you are blocking the current that the universe has sent to you. The fire consumed its machines, but it ignited something inside him that no science could ever fully explain. In the following weeks, Tesla did something that shocked his colleagues. Instead of rebuilding the laboratory immediately, it disappeared. Nobody knew where it was. Nobody understood why. But Tesla wasn't running away. I was investigating. He started observing people on the streets, in cafes, in parks, couples in love, strangers who met, eyes that crossed, and he saw patterns, vibrations, invisible frequencies connecting souls before the words were even spoken. He realized that the people he was most attracted to were not the most beautiful, nor the richest, nor the most intelligent. They were those that vibrated at the same emotional frequency, like 2 synchronized waves crossing the ocean. And then came the question that haunted him. If love is magnetism, why do so many people fail to find it? The answer was simple and brutal. Because they try to force it. They try to control. They try to be something they are not, vibrating at a false frequency, hoping to attract what could never resonate with them. Tesla realized that people spent their entire lives trying to win love when they should just be adjusting their own vibration. But there was something more, something he still didn't fully understand. A mystery that pulsed in the back of his mind like an electric current he couldn't turn off. Why Catherine? Why, of all the people in the world, only she made his field vibrate like that? He didn't know, not yet, but he would find out. And when he found out, it would change everything humanity believed about connection, destiny, and the invisible power that rules the human heart. If you feel like this story is touching something inside you, subscribe to the channel. Because what Tesla discovered about love goes beyond any romance. It's the science of the invisible field that connects souls. Tesla did not return to the laboratory for weeks. Instead, he became a silent observer of the invisible dance taking place around him. He frequented the same places, at the same times, noting patterns that no one else knew. I understood. It was in a cafe on Fifth Avenue that he first saw the antagonist. It wasn't a person. It was a pattern of behavior that repeated itself like a virus spreading across the city. Tesla called it the false frequency. A well-dressed, eloquent, charming man approached a woman who was reading alone by the window. He smiled, He said exactly the right words. He made all the calculated gestures of seduction, and the woman smiled back, clearly interested. But Tesla saw something they didn't. He observed body language, the rhythm of breathing, the dilation of pupils, and he noticed something disturbing. They weren't resonating, they were performing, like two actors rehearsing a script they believed was love, but which was just a convincing imitation. The man wasn't vibrating at his true frequency. He was sending out signals he thought she wanted to receive, and she, in turn, was responding not to what he was, but to what he seemed to be. Tesla noted, when you fake a frequency to attract someone, you are not creating connection, you are creating illusion. And illusions always collapse when the true vibration emerges. He began to observe this pattern everywhere. Men trying to be what they thought women wanted, women shaping themselves to meet other people's expectations, entire relationships built on vibrational lies, and they all eventually failed. Tesla realized that society had created a playbook for seduction, pretty words, romantic gestures, sweet promises, but no one understood the underlying physics. Nobody understood that you can't fool a magnetic field. The true frequency always shines through sooner or later, and when it shows, the attraction disappears because it never really existed. It was then that he found Margaret. She worked at a small bookstore on the Lower East Side. Tesla went there to look for European scientific publications. He noticed that she never tried to impress him, never smiled forcedly. His behavior never changed when he entered. She was consistent, like a direct current, always on the same frequency, regardless of who was watching. One day, while leafing through a book about electromagnetic waves, Tesla casually asked, "Do you believe in destiny?" Margaret looked up, considering the question with unexpected seriousness. "No," she replied simply. "I believe in resonance." Tesla felt something move inside him, as if an electric current had passed through his chest. "Resonance?" he repeated, controlling his voice. "Yes. My father was a musician. He taught me that when you play the right string on a violin, all the other strings at the same frequency begin to vibrate on their own. He said that people are like that. We don't choose who we love, we just resonate." Tesla was silent. She had said in simple words what he was trying to prove with complex equations, but there was something more, something that deeply disturbed him. Why did Margaret speak his language? Why? Of all the people in New York, was she the only one who understood resonance without ever having studied physics? That was the second mystery, and Tesla still didn't know the answer. Over the next few weeks, he returned to the bookstore more times than he needed to, not to buy books, but to understand, to observe, to feel her frequency. And the more he watched, the more disturbed he became. Because Margaret didn't just understand resonance, she lived in it. Every word he said, every gesture he made, everything was authentic. There was no performance. There was no mask. She simply was. And Tesla realized something that terrified him. He was beginning to resonate with her. It wasn't physical desire. It was not intellectual admiration. It was something deeper, more frightening. It was as if the invisible field around him was rearranging itself, adjusting its frequency to match hers, and he had no control over it. One night, alone in his apartment, Tesla had a panic attack. He, who had tamed electricity, who had captured lightning and transformed currents, was being dominated by a force he couldn't measure, couldn't control, couldn't turn off. He wrote frantically in his notebook, "Love is not a choice because frequency is not a choice. You can fake it, you can repress it, you can deny it, but the field always wins, always." And then he understood why he had failed Catherine. Not because he didn't love her, but because I had tried to control how I felt. I had tried to suppress the frequency, and in doing so, it created internal dissonance, blocked the current. Now, with Margaret, he felt the same resonance, but this time he knew what was happening, and this time he had a choice: repress it again, or allow the field to do what magnetic fields do naturally, connect. But there was a problem. Tesla discovered, through a casual conversation, that Margaret had a fiancé, a man named Thomas, rich, influential, respected. The wedding was scheduled for 3 months from now, and here was the cruel irony that made Tesla laugh bitterly. Thomas was the exact kind of man he had observed in the cafe weeks before: charming, rehearsed, emitting a fake frequency perfectly calibrated to appear attractive. But it wasn't Margaret's frequency. Tesla knew this. I felt that. I saw it in her eyes whenever Thomas appeared at the bookstore. A polite but dull smile, a trained response, but without resonance. Margaret was about to marry a man whose vibe didn't match hers, and even she didn't know that. Or did you know? This was the third mystery. And Tesla decided he needed to discover the truth, not for science, but for something he finally admitted was more powerful than any equation. The field between them was growing, and Tesla knew that he would soon have to make a decision: let the current flow or block the circuit once again. But this time, the price would be much higher, because this time, it wasn't just his heart on the line. It was the soul of someone living in the purest frequency he had ever encountered. Tesla began to do something he had never done before: study Margaret as he studied her experiments, but not in a cold or distant way. He was trying to understand the invisible field she generated, the frequency she emanated effortlessly. He noticed that every time Thomas appeared at the bookstore, something strange happened. Margaret changed, subtly, but it changed. His smile became a notch tighter, his posture slightly more rigid, as if it were adjusting its voltage to match an incompatible current. It was exactly what Tesla had seen in that couple in the cafe, the false frequency in action. But when Thomas left, Margaret returned, like a violin string returning to its natural note after being forced to play out of tune. Tesla knew he needed to act, not in a romantic or impulsive way, but scientifically. He needed to prove, to himself and to her, that the resonance was real, that what happened between them was no illusion. So he created an experiment. It was a cold November afternoon. Margaret was alone in the bookstore, organizing shelves. Tesla entered, and instead of going straight to the scientific books as he always did, he stopped near her. "Can I ask you a strange question?" he said, breaking the usual pattern of superficial conversations. Margaret turned around, curious. "Strange how? Have you ever felt like you knew someone before you even met them? As if this person's presence was familiar, not romantically but energetically?" She was silent for a long moment. His normally serene eyes revealed something Tesla had never seen before: vulnerability. "Yes," she whispered, "I feel that now." The confession fell between them like lightning passing through an electromagnetic field. Tesla felt the air change. The temperature rises. The space between them vibrates with an almost tangible intensity. He took a step forward. She didn't back down. "Margaret, I know this is going to sound insane, but I need to tell you something about frequencies." "I know," she interrupted, her voice shaking. "My father didn't just teach me about resonance in music. He taught me that there are people who vibrate at compatible frequencies, and when you meet one of these people, you feel it in your body before you understand it in your mind." Tesla was paralyzed. She knew. She always knew. "Then why are you marrying Thomas?" The words came out before he could contain them. Margaret's face fell. She walked away, going back to organizing the books as if she needed to keep her hands busy so she wouldn't fall apart. "Because resonance doesn't pay the bills, Mr. Tesla. Because my father died leaving debts that I'm still paying. Because Thomas is a good, respectable man who can give me security. But it doesn't vibrate at your frequency," Tesla insisted, his voice more intense. "You know that. I see it in his eyes every time he comes in here. You turn off, as if it turned off its own current so as not to cause an overload in its circuit." Margaret turned sharply, her eyes now filled with unshed tears. "And what do you want me to do? That I bet everything on a connection that I can't explain? Who abandons security for a sensation? It's not a sensation." Tesla approached again, his voice low but firm. "It's physics. It's real. It's more real than any marriage contract." "You don't understand," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't risk it. Not again." And there it was, the fourth mystery, the missing piece. Not again. Tesla realized that there was something in Margaret's past, something that made her build walls around her own frequency, something that had taught her not to trust resonance, even if she felt it. He needed to know what it was. That night, Tesla did something he would normally do, would pray, investigated. He spoke with neighbors, with old merchants in the neighborhood, and he discovered the story that Margaret had never told. 5 years earlier, she had been engaged to another man, an artist, someone with whom, according to everyone who knew them, she vibrated in perfect harmony. They were inseparable. They spoke the same language. They laughed at the same things. It was pure resonance, but he was unstable, bright and chaotic. And one winter night, after a violent argument with a businessman who had rejected his works, he simply disappeared. He left a letter saying that the world didn't understand his art and that he needed to leave. Margaret waited, for months, for years. He never came back, and she learned the cruelest lesson. Resonance does not guarantee permanence. True connection does not guarantee commitment. So when Thomas showed up, predictable, stable, safe, she chose logic over frequency. He chose what he could control over what he could only feel. Tesla understood, and it destroyed him, because he realized that Margaret was afraid of exactly what he was, a man obsessed with invisible currents, with energies that no one else understood, with vibrations that the world despised. She was afraid that if she allowed herself to resonate with him, she would end up abandoned again, vibrating alone in the void. For the next few days, Tesla locked himself in his new makeshift laboratory. He knew he had little time. The wedding was near, and he needed to prove something impossible. I needed to prove that true resonance wasn't just emotional compatibility, it was physical destiny. It was magnetic inevitability. So he built something no scientist had ever tried, an emotional field detector. It was a simple machine made of copper coils, quartz crystals, and a sensitive meter. The theory was bold. If human emotions generated subtle electromagnetic frequencies, this machine could detect them. He could prove scientifically that what he felt for Margaret and what she felt for him were not illusions. It was measurable current. He tested it on himself first. He sat silently, thought about Margaret, and watched the needle on the meter twitch, vibrate, recording waves that exactly matched the frequency his resonating coils had shown weeks earlier. So he needed to test it on her. But how do you ask a soon-to-be-married woman to come to an eccentric scientist's laboratory to have her emotions measured? Tesla had a risky idea. He returned to the bookstore 3 days before the wedding. Margaret was pale, tense, clearly exhausted. "I need your help," he said bluntly. "I'm working on a theory about human electromagnetic fields. I need someone with high emotional sensitivity to test it. You are the best person I know." Margaret hesitated. "Mr. Tesla, I don't think it's appropriate." "Please," he interrupted, and there was something in his voice she had never heard before. Not supplication, but urgency, raw truth. "Just an hour, just a test, and then, if you want, you never have to see me again." She looked at him for a long moment, and then, against all logic, against all fear, he agreed, because deep down, she needed to know too. She needed to know if what she felt was real, or if it was just the ghost of a resonance that had already destroyed her before. The laboratory was silent when Margaret entered. The dim light from the incandescent bulbs created dancing shadows on the walls covered in diagrams and equations. She had never seen anything like it. It was like entering Tesla's mind, translated into wires, coils, and crystals. He greeted her with an almost painful formality, as if he were trying to maintain emotional distance, but his hands shook slightly when adjusting the instruments. "It's simple," he explained, avoiding looking directly at her. "You will sit here. These coils around you will detect subtle electromagnetic fields. I will ask questions and record variations." Margaret sat on the wooden chair in the center of the circle of coils. Her heart was beating fast, but she tried to keep her breathing under control. Tesla positioned himself behind a table with his gauges, notes ready. "First question, think of something that brings you absolute peace." Margaret closed her eyes. He thought of the bookstore at dawn, the smell of freshly brewed coffee, the silence before customers arrived. The meter's needle swayed gently, calm, even waves. Tesla took note. "Second question, think about your fiancé." Margaret swallowed. It forced the image of Thomas into her mind, his smile, the wedding plans, the house he had bought for them. The needle shook irregularly. The waves became erratic, as if they were trying to find a pattern and couldn't. Tesla felt his chest tighten, but he continued taking notes. "Third question." His voice got lower. "Think about resonance." Margaret opened her eyes for a moment, meeting his gaze, and then it closed again. She didn't think about music. He didn't think about physics. She thought of that moment, weeks ago, when Tesla walked into the bookstore for the first time, and something inside her just recognized something inside him. As if two parts of an incomplete circuit finally met, the meter needle exploded into motion. The waves synchronized perfectly, creating a pattern so regular, so harmonious, that it seemed like visual music. And then something impossible happened. The coils around Margaret began to glow, not strong, but noticeable, a faint, ghostly, bluish luminescence. Tesla was paralyzed. He had seen this phenomenon before, but only in high-voltage experiments, never with such subtle fields, never with human emotions. Margaret opened her eyes, startled. "What is happening?" Tesla approached slowly, forgetting all scientific protocols. He looked at the gauges, at the coils, at her. "You're generating a field," he whispered, amazed. "A coherent electromagnetic field. Pure. I've never seen anything like this." But then he noticed something more disturbing. He looked at his own hands and saw the same faint luminescence around them. His own field was responding, resonating. It was real. Everything he had theorized, everything he had felt, it was no illusion. It was documentable physics. Margaret rose from her chair, her legs feeling weak. It means that what happens between us is not a choice," Tesla added, his voice hoarse. "It's magnetic inevitability. Our fields recognize each other. They vibrate at the same frequency, and when they are close, they amplify each other." Margaret began to cry, not sadness, but something much more devastating. Relief knowing I wasn't going crazy, that what I felt was real. "But I'm getting married in 3 days, she said, her voice breaking. "What do I do with this information?" Tesla took a step forward. and for the first time since they met, he allowed himself to touch her. Just his hands, but the effect was electric. Literally, they both felt a subtle current run through their skin. "You choose what resonates or what's safe," he said. "But you need to know, if you choose safety, you will spend the rest of your life suppressing your true frequency. You will live out of tune, and that kills the soul more slowly than anything else." Margaret held his hands tightly, as if she were drowning and he was the only solid thing. "What if I choose resonance and you let me? How did the other one do?" "I can't promise I'll be easy to love," he said slowly. "I can't promise normality, but I can promise this. As long as I vibrate, I will vibrate at your frequency, because I can't do it differently, because magnetic fields don't lie." It was then that the laboratory door opened violently. Thomas entered, his face red with anger. He had followed Margaret. "So it's true," he spat out the words. "You're cheating on me with this lunatic." Margaret turned away from Tesla, pale. "Thomas, it's not what you think, isn't it? I just saw you holding hands, talking about frequencies as if it meant anything." "It means everything," Tesla said calmly. Thomas advanced toward him, his fists clenched. "Do you think you can steal my bride with your crazy theories?" "I didn't steal anything," Tesla replied, standing firm. "Frequencies cannot be stolen. They simply are. And her frequency was never yours." The truth of those words hit Thomas like a punch, because deep down, he knew. "I always knew." "Margaret," he turned to her, his voice wavering between anger and despair. "Tell him. Say you love me. Who will marry me?" Margaret looked at Thomas, then to Tesla, then to the coils still glowing dimly, and then, for the first time in 5 years, she made the choice her heart always knew was true. "I can't," she whispered. "Thomas, you are a good man, but I don't resonate with you. I never resonated. And if I marry you, I will destroy you both, because you deserve someone who vibrates when you walk into the room." Thomas stood still. Then, without a word, he left the laboratory, slamming the door loudly. Margaret collapsed into a chair, shaking. Tesla knelt down beside her. "Are you sure?" She looked at him, her eyes still moist, but with a clarity that hadn't existed before. "For the first time in years, I do." 3 months later, Tesla was in his rebuilt laboratory when Margaret entered carrying coffee and fresh bread. She now spent her mornings there, not just as company but as a collaborator. He discovered that he had a natural talent for understanding patterns that he spent hours drawing. "You need to eat," she said, placing the cup on the table full of papers. Tesla looked up, distracted but smiled when he saw her. That smile was still rare, but when it happened, it was genuine, pure. "I was finishing something," he said, showing a notebook. "The complete theory. Everything I learned about magnetic fields and love." Margaret sat next to him, curious. "And what did you conclude?" Tesla took a deep breath. "That people spend their entire lives trying to create love, when they should just adjust their true frequency and let resonance do the work. That pretending to be something you're not doesn't attract love. It attracts illusion. And illusions always collapse." He turned the pages, showing diagrams and equations mixed with almost poetic notes. "I discovered that there are 4 types of connection. The first is false, performance-based attraction. The second is rational compatibility, where everything makes sense on paper, but there is no real chain. The third is uncontrolled passion, where there is energy, but without synchrony. And the fourth, true resonance, when 2 fields not only attract each other, but amplify each other." Margaret touched the notebook gently, knowing that it was describing exactly what was happening between them. "Are you going to publish this?" Tesla hesitated. "No. The world is not yet ready to understand that love is not luck or romantic destiny. It's frequency, and frequency can be adjusted, but never forced." He closed the notebook and looked out the window. "But I will leave these notes for anyone who is ready to listen. For those who have vibrated out of tune their entire lives and need to know that they are not crazy, just operating on a frequency that few recognize." Margaret rested her head on his shoulder, and Tesla, for the first time in decades, allowed himself to just feel. Don't think, do not analyze, just resonate. That afternoon, as they walked the streets of New York, Margaret asked something that had intrigued her from the beginning. "Why did my father teach me about resonance if he was just a musician?" Tesla smiled, as if he was guarding this secret, waiting for the right moment. "I investigated. His father studied acoustic physics in Vienna before coming to America. He understood that sound is vibration, and vibration is the language of the universe. He wasn't teaching you music, Margaret. I was teaching you to listen to frequencies, recognizing resonance." Margaret stopped in the middle of the street, stunned. All of his father's lessons. Now, they made sense. She hadn't found Tesla by chance. She had been tuned to recognize him. That was the ultimate mystery, and now it was resolved. "So my father knew. He knew you would vibrate at a rare frequency," Tesla said gently. "And when you found someone on the same frequency, you would need to have the courage to resonate. Margaret felt deep gratitude for the father who had left her the most valuable gift, the ability to recognize true connection when it appeared. Years later, when Tesla was an old man, a young journalist asked him what his greatest discovery had been. Tesla smiled, looking at Margaret sitting on the porch of her house. "The magnetic law of love," he replied. "It's not poetry, it's physics. You stop trying to win love and start emitting the frequency that naturally attracts what resonates with you." The journalist frowned, confused. "But Mr. Tesla, that sounds abstract. Only for those who have never felt it," Tesla said softly. "For those who felt it, it is the most concrete thing in the universe." And then he walked over to Margaret, sitting beside her in silence. They didn't need words, they just vibrated together, like two coils that recognized their corresponding frequency. The truth that Tesla discovered in that burning laboratory was never officially published, but it lives in every person who chooses authenticity over performance, in every soul that prefers to truly resonate with a few than vibrate falsely with the many. Because in the end, the universe doesn't respond to what you pretend to be. It responds to what you are, at your real frequency. And when you vibrate in this truth, without fear, without masks, the right resonance arrives, not as a reward, but as recognition. Like two magnetic fields that finally meet and realize, so it was you. And this is the magnetic law of love. Frequency finding frequency. Resonance recognizing resonance. If this story touched something inside you, subscribe to this channel. Because here, we continue to explore the invisible truths that Tesla discovered. The laws that connect not just machines, but souls. The universe is always vibrating. The question is, are you tuned in to listen?